And now it's going up. So, see, we're recording. Isn't this painful?
Well, process.
It's not bad. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Sustainiacs. I'm Michael Vincent. I'm always a Sustainiac. I found another one. There's a few. There's a number of them out there. All you have to do is look. Just not even all that hard, really. And she is Simone Schuppan, and she is the founder and managing partner of C2 Impact. And it's my distinct pleasure and honor to have you on as a guest. Welcome to the show, Simone.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael.
Absolutely. Where are you at? Are you in Chicago or are you?
In the suburbs, it always sounds boring. I'm spending enough time in Chicago that I can kind of say Chicago, but I'm always honest. I'm like, yeah, in the suburbs.
In the suburbs. Okay. Well, I mean, I love Chicago. I love Chicago in the summertime. When I go there, it's. I always make sure I have time to get to a Portillo's or Al's Beef as soon as I get off the plane before I have a meeting. Do you have a favorite between the two, or is it neither?
It's neither, mostly because my husband is a fabulous cook, so, or chef, I should say. So I get
Oh,
really spoiled at
okay.
home.
I got you. So, hey, everybody, if you go in there, you got to go to Simone's house. She's got the best Italian beef sandwiches, I guess. That's fantastic. Fantastic. So tell us, C2 Impact. I look for people who have interesting takes or nascent technologies in sustainability or, the new tech around sustainability, right? And even, the uses of existing tech or emerging tech like AI and sustainability, et cetera, and those different types of things. And when I came across what you do, it was really interesting to me because you're like helping with the adoption and adaptation of new technologies into businesses. Is that right? Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, so the part that we work with, we partner with these tech companies that you kind of just mentioned, companies that have developed really amazing solutions around sustainability, kind of reorganizing the planet to make it work for the future. And we help those companies go mainstream because the sustainability part is one important part. But to make it accessible to more people, if you make the business case, it's going to be so much easier for other people and other businesses to say yes. And that's the part that we help with by helping explain how that solution is of business value.
I love that, and I love the reorganizing the planet, right? And I'll tell you why, because I think of it, when 36 years in logistics, right? I've done everything except run a railroad, and the big thing that everybody is, you know, currently focused on in logistics, and I guess it's a good thing to be focused on, but there's many other things that can impact as well as being a player in other solutions. Is their emissions, right? Aside from their emissions, logistics is the answer to circularity and therefore sustainability. I mean, even when you're talking about going to a greener fuel, the logistics of of sourcing and dispensing and storing and everything is the answer. Right? That's the key to making it adapt. But I've always seen that it's a chance again, and we've failed many times over. But it's a chance again to reorganize and equalize the haves and have-nots, which is the cause of most of the tensions in the world, right? I mean, do you see it as that kind of an opportunity? Is it that, or am I too, I don't know what you want to call it. Am I too much of a dreamer, pie in the sky type thinking in that, or do you see that as kind of a mission?
I think it's a very realistic outcome because if you start looking at how things kind of make sense, we've done a number of things over time, centralizing, if you look at, waste collection, those kind of things. I've been working with a number of
Yeah,
companies that are kind of localizing things. So if you look at food waste, if you take care of that locally, first of all, keeping it out of the landfill, and then taking care of it locally, you have a direct benefit to the community, and people understand why it's done. They can see the benefit of how it's helping. If you put it into local gardens, I mean, it's a whole nice local circle that makes sense. And then if that can be replicated all across the country and the planet.
yeah, it really can. Composting is something that most people don't understand. It's really not that difficult of a thing to set up and to do, and it can be quite effective just in a decent sized neighborhood, right?
Yeah, and the nice thing is now, well, I did spend a good amount this spring on the topic just because I was like personally interested in it, and I've been doing it basically all my life. But it's there's so many opportunities how you can do it now. Even like doesn't matter if you're in an apartment or if you have your own garden, or if you're interested in it or just like mildly have heard about it. There's so many different options now out there that it's actually doable, and I think that is a main part for individual consumers as well as businesses, that if they have easy access, if they can see how it fits into their day-to-day life, they're going to choose those options, because most people want to do something but they're not quite sure
Mm.
how. And then if it gets too complicated, I mean, people have stuff to do. There's kids, there's parents to take care of, they have to do their job, they're under pressure. I mean, like, there's so many things that if you come with a sustainable solution, they're just like, yeah, but I have time. Well, we kind of,
Yeah, I
we're
don't
not,
have time for
we,
that. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, we need to take care of this right now. We can't wait until, and the time never comes. Like for anything that has that approach of, yeah, I'll do that when I have time, that means it's not as important. But if it is something that's important, if we can make it easy for people, I feel like that's a part, and that's why I think it comes in when you were saying this is too optimistic. Can we like make the world a better place by
Yeah.
making things more sustainable? And I really believe that is the case, because if we're looking at small things that make sense and they add up, uh, it it just, I think there is that snowball effect.
There is, but you know, our society, and it's not even just North America, the United States. It's across the globe. Our society waits till the last minute. It becomes. It's not that it's not important, right? It's just that the immediacy makes it more important. Like immediately, I have to pay a bill, and immediately I have to get my kids to school, and immediately I have to do this. Yes, the environment is going to be destroyed if we don't change what we're doing. There's no. You can argue that all day long if you want to, but you're wrong. It is if we keep doing that. But it's the yeah, but I don't see it yet. It's not the immediacy isn't there. You know, like soccer or European football. Nobody gets super excited until you're into extra time. Nobody gets super excited in American football until it's the 2 minute drill. Nobody gets crazy in baseball until you're in overtime innings. You know, what I mean, it's the way we do it, right? It's oh, the buzzer's coming now. I need to get something done, right? It was important to win the game before, but now it's really important because there's no more time left. And it's kind of getting people, but it's that visibility, it's that being able to do it, and it's the education, right? Because you're right. It's like 82% or something of the survey from the recycling partnership of people said recycling and doing sustainable activities, etc., is worth it. Also, 75% of them said they don't remember ever getting any communication on what they can possibly do about it, right? And that's part of the issue too, right? And the confusion.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And kind of the way you were saying it, like waiting to the last minute, waiting until it's urgent, that's what we're playing into in terms of, when you're a business, you have your quarterly reports. That's kind of a made up urgency, but it's part of the system and part of the system that we currently subscribe to. So if we can understand what is important to, let's say, a manufacturing company right now, what are they dealing with? They're dealing with, keeping their employees safe, making sure the machines are running, like that's day-to-day stuff that, let's say you're a company who has developed a technology to save water. You can come in with that. Like there's an urgency, and then you can set yourself apart by not just being like, hey, we can save you some money. Your water bill is going to be smaller. Like there's additional things that you can then build in that play into that urgency. So, for example, if I'm in Texas, I may not have water, the certainty that I will have water for my production, and then I'm not producing. Like now we have something that's like really important that's happening right now, that I don't need to hear something about the Arctic ice melting, but you can do something right now. And that's kind of what we were playing into to support that without having to look at, you don't need to zoom in and out all the time. That's very energy consuming as a person.
It really is. It really is exhausting. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're 100% right. And when you talk about the water, I mean, like the deep freeze in Texas a number of years back, right? That exposed the grid going, holy cow, right? And then it was like, well, we can't possibly support all the EVs that are coming out. And there's arguments back and forth, but the fact is that now we actually need like 6 times the copper production. So that's going to be a little bit difficult, because you got AI and all that other stuff, all these data centers that are coming out, they're going to make life wonderful. But there's people don't understand. There's an impending copper shortage, and it's not a joke. It's difficult to adopt all these things. There's slippery slopes that we go down, right? That you have to help people navigate. And the first one really is business leaders thinking that because sustainability, therefore it's going to destroy their bottom line. And that's not the case, right? I mean, you're working with these companies to adopt and implement these technologies, right? I mean, is that a hurdle still that you have to overcome in many of these places, or maybe not because you're coming in, they're inviting you in, right? You're to solve these situations.
So the funny thing is, when client of ours lead with the sustainability part of it, they've at times fall on deaf ears, or it lands in a bucket of, okay, that's kind of already a nice to have. Like it already is in a
Yeah.
different way on how it's looked at. And we've kind of done like A/B testing on that too. When you come in with understanding, showing you understand, that kind of back to the manufacturing example, hey, you're dealing with this, and then kind of how do you bring this up to the CFO level, who really doesn't want to know all the technology features, like they don't. It may be the coolest
Right. They want to
technology.
see what's the ROI, what's the impact on this line item and the bottom line, right? That's yeah.
Exactly. And the chief legal officer is like, okay, risk, like, what does that mean? And then everybody is like, I hate change. Why we're changing this? It's been fine. And
Mm.
so to be able to speak to these different points, when you do that, you get open ears, and then also the open pocketbook, because actually there's so much business value, economic value. And we actually started creating a model because we're like, this is not an outlier that it makes business sense. They truly do make
Mm.
business sense. There are technologies, like in any kind of technology, that is just kind of oh, that's like fun to have. I mean, I'm sure you've come across all different gadgets in your life where it's like, yeah, that's like fine.
There's 5 of them. There's 5 of them hanging behind me. These guitars, they're fun to have.
So it's like, oh, yeah, that's like fun to have. But then it's like, um, any technology at some point will have to defend itself. Like, why are we doing this? Like, companies don't have
Yeah.
endless money, even if they wanted to do all things. Let's say a company decided we're just going to go all in on sustainability. We love the topic. You're still going to have to show up. Okay, why are we doing something like an air quality monitoring versus some energy efficiency thing? Or like, there's going to be different ways in how you have to show, okay, why does it make sense? So you might as well start now and just be there and show that you understand them. It makes a huge impact when people have to decide at the business level, because they get measured on certain things, certain goals, and those may not be sustainability related, and they want to keep their job, they want to be good at their job, and if you can help them buy your stuff, I mean, hello.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. And they are responsible, and it's what one of the things that makes it difficult is not only they're responsible to their bosses, but eventually they're responsible to in a public company, to the stakeholders and the shareholders of that company, right? And and hopefully the majority, I know it's not all, but hopefully there's enough out there that feel responsible to the community and the families and everything around them and those that they impact and they support, and they take that into account as well, which is kind of that altruistic side of things. But I don't really, I'm a capitalist for sure, but I don't believe in just making a business just to make money. There's got to be something more to the business. Got to improve somebody's life somehow, right? And not take away from somebody else's life. I believe those should be part of your pillars of success in your company. But it when you look at these sustainability efforts and what they're examining within the companies, there's a difference between those that are looking at it like, okay, this is something we have to do because our employees like it, or because the customers are demanding it, et cetera, and those that are doing it because they see it as an advantage and something that they should be doing anyways. And one of those things that I'd like you to talk about is the fact that, or in my opinion, or give your opinion on this, the efforts to become more sustainable within your company, whether it be a manufacturing or service company or an intelligence company, whatever it happens to be, is really a result of good, sound business practice, isn't it? I mean, if you're running the operations within a company, no matter what it is, legal operations or actual manufacturing operations or logistics ops or human resources ops, you're wanting to be as efficient and productive as possible with as little waste, whatever that waste is, as possible. Isn't sustainability just really sound business practice?
It is. At the end of the day, it really is. It's that barrier right now, especially if we're looking at where we're living. It's just like a word can trigger people and run in the opposite direction, no matter if it's right or wrong.
Yeah,
And
we just witnessed that, didn't we?
and and so I feel like in order to still move the ball forward, no matter what, you kind of have to play into, well, people do things out of fear and or not do something out of fear. And if you can make things make sense in their world, you can still like a lot of our clients are very concerned right now. They're like, well, if we can't keep our business up and running, the whole mission that we're on is just going to die. And that's when we're now
Mm,
working on just kind of that mindset shift of let's work with the people who may or may not understand. Let's make them understand it in their world. And there is a champion in the company who really goes for
mm,
it. But to get everybody
yeah,
on the table, you have to again like look at all these different point of views that somebody brings to the table, and just sometimes like the business sense is the one that is the just the easiest because they know how to buy something. And
yeah, yeah.
that's just kind of
No,
yeah.
that's true. I mean, you look at. I just read an article about Hershey, for example, right? Chocolate bar, $500 million. I think that is what they're spending. Maybe that's not billions. 500 million that they're spending on their supply chain, right? And you think it's like automation and all sorts of stuff. No, they are spending the money to improve the lives of their cocoa farmers, right? They're trying to cocoa farming is notorious for having child labor and that type of stuff, right? So the sustainability of the environment, the social impacts of that, all those things impact their bottom line and their product, right? So they're spending $500 million on something that a lot of people just look at it as this social thing, like this gift. Okay, they're going to give these to these people, and then they're just going to spend it, and we're going to be right back to where they were. But that's not what they're doing. This is what I'm talking about. It's a sustainability and social impact that is positive for everybody. It changes the haves and has-nots. It improves the environment and sustainability, reduces carbon emissions, and it shores up a business's raw material flow. That's just sound business. That just point me in the direction of the argument against that. I don't understand why that's not what every business should be looking at, right?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that is the part coming back to what you said at the very beginning. It is a supply chain topic. I mean, that's kind of dominating because you look all the way down where no matter where you're at in that process, who are you getting your stuff from, how's it made, and then kind of looking, okay, how can I between like helping, but also if I have certainty that what I'm getting is good and is consistent, I'm getting it on time. If I can help with that, I'm shoring up my own business, and you can just have that go
Exactly.
all the way down.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just makes common sense. What are the technologies that you deal with now? How have you seen this change? Or better yet, let's start. How did you get into this type of business? Were you in other business and consulting and helping with technology and said, you know what, I'm going to do specifically sustainability? Or were you kind of pulled into it and said, hey, this is pretty cool? Or how did Simone get into this racket?
So I've always been interested in sustainability as a not a term, but just kind of living in a way that, you know, you use resources, but you don't overuse them. I grew up in Germany, so I kind of say it's in my DNA.
I was going to ask that. Did you grow up in Germany? Because I had a show that I called the Heidelberg Impact, and it was because a woman went over. She lived in Heidelberg for a while. When she came back, she couldn't understand why we weren't more sustainable than we are, because it's just a way of life. But go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, growing up, we had our own garden. My mom would bake bread. We would like look into different things of like how we would just have our like house set up with, turning off the lights after yourself, not using a lot of water because water is actually very expensive. I mean, I think I took my first 15-minute shower when I came to the United States because it's more of a like a
Oh,
three
really?
thing. um,
Yeah.
so just like things
See,
that
my
are
dad was a Marine. My dad was a Marine, so I still don't go take a shower for more than 3 minutes.
Um, yeah, I try not to. That's an indulgence. But
Yeah.
so I just did a lot of things, and when I was growing up, there were also different things like so we drove by forests that had died. I mean, like I would see things that were
Mm.
going the wrong way. Chernobyl happened while when I was a kid. When we couldn't go outside, we couldn't eat vegetables over the summer. I mean, it was like there were things that that went on in the environment like around me that impacted my day to day as I was growing up. And I just kept thinking about like, okay, how can we make this better? But it was kind of at the same time too, when you grow up, you have to kind of figure out a way how to make money at some point. And I started,
Yeah. Right.
I studied business because I love science and engineering. I'm fascinated. You can pull me into all different kind of things. But I have no patience. I'm just like, okay, we need to do this now. Um, and
Yeah.
so I figured if I understand business, I can make things happen. And so that's how I got into the business side, came to the US and was like, wow, things are very different here. So I just traditionally after school, I just started with, any way of making money. And in my case, that was commercial real estate.
Got you.
and
Okay.
uh, and that's basically probably the farthest away you can be from sustainability, probably. Um,
Well, I mean, yeah, kind of. I mean, digging big holes in the ground and putting up buildings is.
Now, the interesting thing over the years was I learned a lot about how different kind of industries work. I mean, like I've worked with companies in basically any industry. You throw something at me, I've probably been in a facility, I've talked to decision makers. So that is really
Yeah.
helpful now. And then also, I'm very tied to still like the built environment, which has a huge impact on our emissions and everything else, including water usage, land usage, and all these different things. And to kind of see how these people make decisions, how investors who, well, own the land, the building, and whatnot. And so I kind of became the person, if there was anything kind of green related, oh, Simone is probably interested in that. So I was the first person in our
Yes.
office to be LEED accredited and, like going through these things. So that was a nice, at least parallel path. But then the pandemic was kind of the kick in the behind that I needed personally to kind of come to a stop and say, what are we doing here? And that's when I couldn't turn back. I sat down with myself and said, okay, what can we do that's really meaningful? And that's when I said, I just want to work with businesses that have created sustainable technologies. I started talking to people in the business and I was just not sure like what I would be doing, but I knew that I wanted to go down that direction. And I just listened to business owners and founders, and that's what they told me that they needed. And that's how C2 Impact was born.
Wow. So you take because there's people in logistics that they do the integration of new softwares, et cetera, and they'll go to new or go to clients and look at their operations and help them decide what is the latest, uh, type of technology, whether it be an integrated, data platform or whatever it happens to be for their business, new ERP or whatever. um, how do you go about that process? You're going. Are you from the manufacturer, the producer of the technology, and then going and finding those places where it then fits and helping that, or are they making that sale and then saying, "Okay, Simone is our expert to help you integrate this," or are you from the other side, or like help searching for solutions for specific clients, or how does that work?
So we're specific on the side of the technology. So let's say technology for it can be as simple as something around lighting efficiency in buildings. That's like the lowest hanging fruit, but it's not done everywhere yet. Like, so, hey, change your light bulbs. To a very complicated system that is changing a manufacturing process by putting in an additional type of technology that is going to help with how that product is made to create less waste, let's say on the metal side, for example, like something that's super intricate, and has a ton of different like levels. Or something that's really fun, working with earthworms. I mean, there's technologies that include earthworms. So, I mean, like I
I
love.
just read it. I was just reading an article on earthworms. It was fascinating.
And so there's like all these different things. And so we work with the people who have come up with these ideas. Oftentimes they're small, mid-sized businesses that are, have found their niche, are doing okay, but they're kind of like, why are not more people using this? This is like everybody should be using our technology. And that's when we help them look at why is that? Do not enough people know about you? Or is it they know about you, but it's kind of they don't understand like how that could even help them or what it would do for them, or they like it, but they're like, yeah, we don't have the money for that kind of stuff. And so
Yeah, I
we
was just going to say capital outlay is a big hurdle in that issue. Go ahead.
Yes, and that's exactly what we look at with our clients to kind of say, okay, what's your current problem? Why are not more people buying it? Like where is it kind of where is it stopping? And oftentimes it is that our clients are playing the sustainability card, because I mean there's regulations coming. There's a lot of them that will probably be going. You can't rely on this part alone or on people making good decisions, because you should make good decisions. And so we go really
Yeah.
deep into all these different like value levers. So let's say you're into plastic. So if a company makes creates like for retail moving stuff like goods around out of ocean plastic, that's like
Hmm.
great, right? Like that's awesome. Now,
Sure.
if you
Yeah.
can not only have that part of it, but also explain and lay down how that is going to be safer for employees, because it turns out they're lighter. So if it falls on somebody's toes, it's not that big of a deal. How they stack differently so you can get the double amount into a trailer before you move them again. Like stacking all these different directions into one thing so that it's not random. Hey, did you know we do this? Did you know? But making like this a full story around that, now it becomes easier for that company to make a good decision.
Got you. So I mean, you're like running the whole. I mean, from product redesign and rethinking your go to market and value add strategies, et cetera, all the way through to the mechanical implementation of it. I mean, that's quite a broad spectrum that you guys are attacking, right?
So our clients are always the experts because they've developed the
Sure.
technology. They have that part.
Sure.
And what we help them is really nail down the value, and then how do you talk about it? Those are the two key items that we help our clients with. And that is basically oftentimes it takes a few hours to get everybody kind of on the same page versus we need a 6 month study and you need a new marketing strategy and you need to change the sales
Oh,
team.
geez.
No, it's like all these. And then the people that we typically talk to, they're between frustrated and just like tired of like all that stuff. I'm sure you have like 50 emails every day that tell you the latest and greatest you should be doing, right? And
Sure. Oh yeah.
they don't have the time. It's typically a technical business owner who wants to just like work more on their current technology or come up with something new. When we work with salespeople, they're just like, can just somebody tell me what I'm using so that I don't have to create my own presentations? Or the marketing team is like, we created all this great stuff and nobody's using it. Like all these different things that are moving along, when we just have to kind of go back to basics and be like, okay, can we help customer X buy your technology for the right reason?
Yeah. Can we tell that story rightly and have them buy it for the correct reason and not the wrong reason? Because some people sometimes they're buying it for the wrong reason, right? And it's interesting how that plays out as well as far as in there because you have when you have a consumer facing company or like a B2C type manufacturing or service, it's different than a B2B, right? There's just completely different values because being able to say, oh, this has got ocean bound content in it is a huge plus just to be able to say that if it's a consumer facing product versus business to business or industrial. Because nobody cares whether there's recycled plastic or recycled content in an irrigation pipe that's going into the neighborhood that's being developed. They just don't care. So if it's not cheaper or better in some way, or they're not forced to do it through regulation, ain't gonna happen. It's not.
Yeah,
Nobody's going to pay more just to say that it's there in that situation because there's no benefit to anybody.
exactly.
But to
Yeah.
buy, yeah. But then
And
on the
when you were
business side, but
saying,
go ahead.
just because when you were saying about like actually kind of using it, what comes out at the end of the day, if somebody buys something and they don't use it, or they use it and it doesn't work, I mean, like how frustrating is that? And then especially in the business side, when we're talking big numbers, and you don't want to look like an idiot in front of the company, like whatever your position is. So that is an
Right.
important part too. So when we work with clients who struggle with getting pilots to ongoing business commitments, we help them set up the pilots in a way that there's checks and balances throughout the entire process, and so that the right numbers are being tracked, so that it's a natural, yes, we will continue, we will now implement this for our portfolio or in all of our manufacturing places or whatnot, because it's set up from the beginning. It's not a, oh, let's kind of see how it's going. Maybe, maybe it's not as disruptive. No, it's like set up in a way to show how it's propelling the customer business forward.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, converting from the pilot to the actual implementation is big. And the way that pilot is conducted is a massive, massive teller on how it's going to go. Even when it's positive, people still walk away at times.
Exactly,
Um,
yes.
it's very interesting. Excuse me, I had a cough there. Um, so as you're going through this, how much does regulation? And I'm going to make an assumption here, and I might be wrong, but implementations within the United States, as you see the the regulations in the EU and other countries, which are far ahead of us. Are you seeing companies take that to heart and make their changes here in the United States to get there? Because we're behind in a lot of things, and part of that is, the nature of the makeup of the United States. You got a federal government, you got state governments, and all this other kind of stuff, and people fighting over what's sustainable or not sustainable, that type of thing. When the EU is they're far ahead of us, right?
Yeah, so I think because there's so many regulations that are actually in place in the EU, if you want to do business there, if you're a global business, you just have to. Otherwise, you're done. I mean, your
Yeah.
products will not be accepted there. So I do think there will definitely be a trickle down effect, especially in the large corporations. And I do see the ongoing commitment kind of for the right reasons, because these huge businesses are also, I mean, people look to them. Okay, what are these big businesses doing? How are they making decisions? Um, that impact the consumer. I mean, this this is where everybody kind of gets looked at very closely. So I think businesses that do international business, they just like have to. And then why would you have your business in two different ways? Oh, we're making products for the US different from the EU. No, you look at your entire business and then that's how you organize it. So to follow those regulations. And then within the United States, something that I learned just a few months ago because I was very interested in how regulations would be impacted over the coming years. And it's about 70% of all decisions that have to do around sustainability, climate change solutions, and so forth are done at the local level. And
Right,
so
right.
that's where the independence of states and municipalities is coming in. And it's also closer to the people, kind of from when we were talking at the beginning, when people understand why something is done and they see how things are happening in their own communities, they're also more receptive to it. So I think there's regulations are probably not necessarily the huge driver as expected maybe, but I think combining that with making business sense, making common sense, like it will just all come together. I mean, as we know, there's not going to be one solution that's going to fix it all. There's not going to be one button that will get pushed and we've solved it. It is a process. And I think regulations are an important tool. But if you look at other industries that are highly regulated, guess what? You look at technologies, well, there's now different vendors. So then how do you get in as a business? How do you make yourself stand out? How do you show that this is what that company, what your customer should be using?
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. And it is, and it is that local. It kind of comes from both sides. You know what I mean? Europe does it, then like California, then Canada, then the East Coast, and then the rest of the United States starts to follow. It's kind of how these these things type to happen in this progressive nature, right? And it does become that way when one state goes, another state goes, another state goes, because interstate commerce then gets affected, right? Because you're international when you're talking about the EU. If you do business there, that's it. Yeah, but if New York or Tennessee regulates in a certain way and you do business there, then you're going to have to change, right? I mean, you just have to do that. We've seen that with like the cannabis industry, right? Just because it's legal in one state doesn't mean it's legal in another, and therefore you can't cross lines, even though like two states next to each other have marijuana recreationally are both legal. You still can't cross state lines with it because now that's a federal thing, even though you're going from one state to another. You're literally a foot into another state that's legal. You're still breaking federal law, which is it gets a little bit crazy at times and disrupts this type of stuff. But it seems like most people want to do this right thing. How do we, or do you go as far as the making it more transparent to the consumers, right? To kind of pull this, or I don't know if you call it a pull or a push or what from the consumers, but like we talked about before, is people want to do the right thing, right? They want to buy the right stuff, but it's difficult to do that just because this company is doing it. So now it costs a little bit more. And most people will say, well, yeah, I'll spend a little bit more. But when it comes down to it, studies from, Harvard Business Review and MIT's, they don't. They don't buy it. They don't. They buy the cheaper one that's not sustainable almost every time. How do we solve that type of problem? How do we get that information to the people on a regular basis? The transparency. You heard people talk about recycling. They don't believe it's happening, right? They just don't. And they look at manufacturing, et cetera, and they don't see what manufacturing is trying to do to improve their impact on society and the environment. They don't see that. They don't understand that, like Exxon and some of these people, they're working very hard on different polymers and trying to figure out how to do things. And like Procter and Gamble has millions of dollars invested in Pure Cycle, trying to change their and recycle all of their polypropylene packaging, et cetera. But people don't know this. Is it just because nobody's telling them and they're not spending that advertising dollar to really explain what's going on in industry? I mean, you work in industry. There's obviously a lot of effort being made, right?
Yeah, I think the education part is definitely a big one, and again, like in a way that helps people, because like you can be educational as in like preachy, but that typically doesn't go over too well.
No,
Um,
it doesn't. It doesn't.
and so to find different ways, I mean, like I know gamification has its pros and cons, but like things that where people feel whatever they do actually leads to a change, and that where some of the making things local may play into it. So if you think of in Germany, in Europe, like reverse vending machines are a big thing, where you return your products, you actually get money right there then and there, and you can spend it at the local store. um, and you can see, okay, something is happening what I just returned. I have little visibility into it. Or other ways of how to deal with, we spoke about composting, just like things that you can do locally where you see a little more than the black box something goes into. And people seem to be really interested from all walks of life. I mean, the interesting conversations that I've had about the composting, I never knew people would be so much into composting. And they were really excited about it. It led to so many wonderful conversations that between like the passion to kind of, yeah, doing the right thing, but also like seeing the results, because all so many things are intangible these days. You're scrolling your phone, you put the phone away, like what do you have? I think that's something else. So between the education and bringing things local so people can be proud of what they're doing, how they're contributing at the personal level as well as the business level.
Yeah, that I love that. Is that so? It would, and I agree with you 100% at that. And taking it down to the local, everything from composting and recycling and everything should be much more localized and less of this single stream where everything gets dumped in, because that's where all the inefficiencies and we just increase our emissions, et cetera, do all kinds of crazy stuff that just makes no sense whatsoever. But in a business, if you're in a business right now, what is the first step to take towards sustainability? You say, okay, I've got a business, I'm manufacturing widgets. What's your advice to that CEO or to that leadership group that's in that company going, okay, we've got to work on our scope ones, our scope twos, but beyond that, we're making these products and we have all these. Where's the first step in a company?
I would say, yeah, look at where your money goes. Where is your money flowing? Where the biggest buckets are is typically an opportunity where you can do something. If you're spending a lot of money on transportation, if you're spending lots of
Hmm.
money um, on various forms of energy, like you can probably see, okay, there's different opportunities then how to solve for it. But if there's lots of dollars attached to what you're spending on for your business processes and directly related to your products, like how you're making money, that's where I would start, so that it's not a, oh, we want to do something good, let's see if we have some extra money. No, your biggest impact is going to be in something that you're doing on a day-to-day business, that's the reason for why you're in business. And that way it will also become an integral part. It will make sense. You can get your people on board. It's not an add-on that likely goes away when money is tight.
That's brilliant. I mean, because I always say follow the money. If you want to know what the heck is going on, follow the money, right? And here it is again with sustainability, where most say, well, we're going to have to throw a bunch of money at sustainability. No, follow where you're throwing the money now, and you'll find those opportunities to improve in those corners where that money is being burned or whatever is being done with that money, right? And that's brilliant. I mean, that's a good way to look at it. That's a way to get everybody involved, like you said, from the CFO all the way down to the people doing the work. Is where can we get those efficiencies? And that is massive. That is massive. What do you see coming in the form of regulations? What's the environment look like moving forward for businesses with sustainability regulations do you see in the near and short term to midterm right now? You see it as becoming more difficult or less difficult, or what do you see?
I think there's going to be more happening at the local level in terms of regulations. I think if there's regulations that get developed with businesses, let's say at the community level, let's say cities want to do something, say
Hmm.
construction waste is a huge issue. So if you want to do
Sure.
something, instead of coming up with a regulation that everybody then will try to find a way around it, like bring the
Yeah.
people together. And there's like great examples from across the country where this has happened, where it's not something where the business like, oh my goodness, now we have to do this, costing so much more money, and then everybody's looking for loopholes. So kind of making regulations a top down, bottom up kind of together effort versus a regulation, okay, this gets slapped on. I know that's not always feasible if you're looking at like the national government kind of thing, but since that is likely
Yeah.
not going to happen, communities will likely put regulations in place to just keep themselves safe. I mean, like we have to deal with wildfires, we have to deal with floods, with droughts. There's certain things that will just be a necessity. You know, how much water can you use, for example, and then that probably makes sense to people, and they'll understand if it's being talked about versus a random group of people deciding this is the way it has to be. And then
Yeah. Well, I mean,
regulations.
and that makes sense because it gets done by the people who know more, right? Isn't that? I mean, it might be less expeditious, but it would be more impactful, right, or efficient.
Yeah, I mean, like typically put regulations in place takes a long time, right? It's a whole process at whatever level you're looking at. And my recommendation to businesses is to not rely on that happening. A lot of businesses had relied on
Don't
it,
wait for it.
and let's say, styrofoam foam banning in California. I was talking to a company that makes the trays for meat, and I was like, go for it. Like, if that is something you can jump on, you have the product right now, and nobody can use it anymore. Just like go and like sell as much as you can, but then be prepared that is not going to be your differentiator forever, because there's going to be other people that will come up with similar solutions.
Yeah,
And then, like,
exactly.
how
Yeah,
do you then stand out?
yeah, 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 yeah. Exactly. It can't. It's not the end all be all because it will be adopted by everybody else eventually. That's great. That's great insight. I appreciate it, Simone. I love that you came on. Who should be contacting you, and where do they get in contact with you?
I would say any green tech founder, green tech company leader who is maybe concerned right now, how are things going to be in the future, would love to chat, to just be like, hey, there's plenty of options. You're probably in a really great position. You just need to kind of bring that business value out. So yeah, companies that have developed solutions in the space, would love to support them. And we typically work with small to mid-sized businesses that don't have the amount of staff to handle all these different things. So we want to make it really easy for them. Again, the overall goal, our missions are aligned, right? Like, we want to make the world a better place. We want to make sure people have access to these technologies that they should be using. And then the other thing is startup founders who are kind of like, man, we have this great idea. How can I tell an investor who's going to be very hesitant? They've been hesitant over the last couple of years. They're very hesitant. Anything that's a hard tech product, that's always riskier. So, like, how do I tell them this is a real thing? And so, those are
Mm.
kind of the groups of people that we love working with.
Excellent stuff. We'll make sure we get them to take a look and take a listen. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the Sustainiacs. I'm Michael Vincent. She's Simone Schuppan. Check her out on LinkedIn and check out C2 Impact. Is it c2impact.com?
That is correct. Thank you so
It
much for
is.
having
And
me,
it's
Michael.
C, the letter C, two, the number two, Impact. Check her out. She's awesome. Thank you so much, Simone. Peace and love, everybody.
Thank you so much, Michael.